everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Danielle, the resident romantic.
And I'm Lindsay, and we are friends
till the book ends. Thank you for tuning in today.
We are a Booktube duo who is bringing you some awesome and exciting new content. Today, Danielle and I have decided that we want to talk about our most underrated books. Books that we don't think get enough hype either on Goodreads, there's not enough people reading them, or on Booktube, people just aren't talking about them. So we've each picked books that we think that you guys should read because they deserve more love.
The first one for me is Cressley Cole. She writes the Arcana Chronicles. As far as I know, that series is not completed yet. Lindsay and I are eagerly waiting on the edge of our seats to get the next book in that series. It's a really well-written series. It has a love triangle in it. It envelopes the idea of tarot cards and makes them each essentially pawns in this game. Unfortunately, it literally is a fight to the death. Whoever is the last one standing alive lives. The way it works is every so often, probably about every 100 years, a natural disaster hits the earth, and everyone dies except for the tarot cards. Each tarot card is represented by a character in the book, and each tarot card has a strength, a weakness. It's like the Hunger Games, but with tarot cards, and the game happens every time there's a new natural disaster. So whoever wins lives on until the next game starts. And then from there, you can either win again, or you could end up getting killed and wait to get respawned later on. Sometimes you have your memories, sometimes you don't, sometimes you understand what's going on, sometimes you don't. So there's a love triangle between Evie, who is a tarot card, Jack, who is a regular human who somehow survived this natural disaster, and the death card. Typically with love triangles, I'm not actually torn between who I think the main character should go with. Usually I'm like, you're gonna end up with this person, I can see it happening right now, I'm totally okay for this. You can spend your 100 pages dabbling with the other guy, but you're gonna end up with this guy, he's the good one. But in this one, I've gone back and forth who I think she should end up with, and it's so exhilarating. Not just that, but the effort and the thought and the detail that is put into every single book in the series involving the tarot cards, involving different powers that they have, different disasters that happen, different rescues that happen, deaths that surprise me. It's really well written, and I don't really hear that talked about that much. Especially because I know that we're all waiting on the next book in the series. I really thought people would be talking about it more, but I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about it. So to me, I think that's a very underrated author, a very underrated series. If you have not checked her out, you should go for it. Another underrated author to me is Katie McGarry. I talked about her in our very first video. I think she writes really awesome books where they could work as a standalone, but also if you read all of them in order, you can keep track of the character development and the character growth, because the main character in this one has a sibling that will show up in the next one. The next one has motorcycle gang member that'll show up in the third one, and it's really awesome how she weaves these all together while also allowing them to still be standalone books. I'm eagerly waiting to read any more from her. Right now I have about 7 of her books. I've read through all of them. All of her books that I've read so far were really great, except for Long Way Home. For some reason, that one fell short for me at the end. The ending wasn't that good for me. However, that's one ending out of 7 of her books that I've read. So I think she's a really incredible author. I think she writes really well. Her love stories are so well done. She writes a lot of YA, but also at the same time they're very mature, they're very exciting. There's a lot of twists and turns. And I like it because the YA stories aren't your typical YA theme. A lot of them have emotional troubles to go through. The first series focuses on a bunch of people who were raised in the system. You know, they were never adopted, or they were adopted into the wrong family. People aren't treating them right. While also getting over those personal issues, they meet someone else who's struggling with personal issues, who may seem perfect on the outside but has issues on the inside. She handles all of these growths really well, while also making them intriguing. You feel like almost like you're going through a breakthrough as well as the character is. So she just writes them so well, but I feel like anytime I talk about books with people, no one knows her. So I don't know how she has not become more popular yet. I think she's extremely underrated. You absolutely should pick up one of these books if you like YA, if you like slightly emotional stories, if you like YA romance, if you like drama, if you like comedy. They're all in here, so I highly encourage everyone to go read it. One person I do think is not talked about well in the booktube community would be Jaylyn or Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've talked about her a lot. Lindsay's talked about her a lot. I think she writes great stories. She writes standalones. She does both YA and adult romance. Both of them have drama involved. A lot of them are really well written. All of them are mature. I don't know how she isn't talked about more. I don't have her books right now as they are packed up while I get my study furnished. It blows my mind that people don't talk about her more. I think she is, in my opinion, one of the best YA and adult writers. I've already talked about her on the first video of our channel where I said she is absolutely number one, my favorite author. I just think people should be talking about her more and reading more of her stuff. Last on my list for today is Casey West. She has written books like By Your Side, P.S. I Like You, The Fill-In Boyfriend. These books are relatively new still. One of them is from 2015, one is from 2016, and one is from 2017. I think that they're really fun, slightly dramatic YA books. They do, of course, have love in it. I know, what a surprise. Danielle enjoying a love book. This one I really liked because it starts with a guy and a girl in high school. Both of them totally hate each other because they just get on each other's nerves. They start passing secret notes, and they don't know who these secret notes are going to. They start bonding with this person that they're writing to. As it progresses, they each realize that they're falling for their pen pal, and they don't know who their pen pal is. There's some drama and intrigue involved with that. There's some surprise twists. Even I was surprised by how it ended, but it made my heart warm so much. So I really enjoyed this one. By Your Side was a fun one. It is a girl and a guy accidentally get locked in a library together. The girl has anxiety and I believe panic attacks, and this guy is kind of a loner. He kind of gets the reputation as being the bad boy, but also the dangerous boy. So when she realizes that she is trapped in a library by herself, she gets scared, she gets nervous, she starts working through all these things that'll help her come to terms with the fact that she's trapped in a library, and she stumbles across this guy. So she's also trying to be okay with the fact that she is now locked in with this supposedly dangerous guy who tries to keep up the icy cold facade, but she ends up chipping through it little by little. They are supposed to be trapped in the library for a whole weekend. I believe it is some holiday, maybe Memorial Day weekend. And every time that she starts to freak out a little bit, he does these awesome, cute, fun things that distracts her. And they end up bonding. That is where I'll leave it, because I'm not going to spoil it. I think it's very intriguing. It was very fun. And last but not least, the fill-in boyfriend. A guy and a girl. He is waiting in his car as his sister is going to prom, and he has to drive her. I believe she is a younger girl who got to go to prom with an older guy. And then there's this girl who was supposed to show up to the prom with this perfect boy. She talked about him all the time to her friends. There was this new friend in the group who kept sabotaging her, saying, well, we've never met this guy. Is he even real? Are you making him up? You make him sound so perfect. I doubt he exists. In reality, he does exist. He ends up standing her up at the prom right before she even goes in. So she has to either decide not to go to prom, never show up, go in, face her friends, and this mortifying new friend who's going to make her feel like crap for the fact that her boyfriend's not going to show up, and it's going to make her seem like her boyfriend was never even real to begin with. Or option number 3, she stumbles across this guy in the parking lot who is chilling in the car, and she asks him to be her pretend boyfriend. Go under the name that the old boyfriend was for, go under the activities, sports, anything that the old guy did, he now has to impersonate. And it goes through essentially them filling in for each other and falling in love for each other along the way. All 3 of these were incredible. I know she has more books that I haven't read yet. She's still a very up-to-date author. I've never heard anyone talk about her. I think she writes really fun, slightly mature high school books. Even as a 22-year-old, I still enjoy reading them. I think the romance is really fun. I think it has the characters where the guy is keeping the girl at arm's length and you want to say, what are you doing? Just go for her! And then the girl is completely messing it up and not realizing how good she has it, and you want to scream at her saying, just date him! What's wrong with you? So it really makes me get into the book, and they've all been page-turners to me. So I don't know why people aren't talking about her more. You should go look her up. You should go read her stuff. Well, that's it for me today. Let's go tune into Lindsay to see what some of her underrated books and authors are.
The first book that I want to talk about is Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. And this is a book that I read this summer. I saw it and I picked it up because it looked like a really cute summer contemporary. I'm not a contemporary reader normally. I am a fantasy romance lover. That is my main genre. When I saw this, I was not hesitant going into it, but I didn't expect to really get much out of it. I thought it was going to be cute and fluffy and a really fun beach read. But this book had a lot of really different and deeper elements than I thought it would. We're following this girl named Amelia, and she has worked at this all-girls ice cream stand since her freshman year. And this is her last summer before she and her best friends head off to college. She is made the manager of this all-girls ice cream stand, which is a pretty big honor. The stand is run by kind of a legendary recluse woman who she makes homemade ice cream, and people come from miles and miles around in order to get her ice cream from the stand. However, as we see in the first opening couple chapters, the woman who runs the stand passes away. So her grandnephew is her closest relation. His name is Grady. He's a freshman at college, and he comes to the stand for the summer to run it. He treats it like a business project. And Amelia and him immediately do not get along because she loves this stand. She loves what it stands for. It's very kind of homegrown, and he wants to make it into almost like a franchise, and she's just not about it. So you have that element between Amelia and Grady, kind of this like, we have to work together, but we don't really like each other, but we have a common goal dynamic relationship happening. There's that aspect that I did actually really enjoy, and the primary reason why I ended up giving it a 4 stars, I really enjoyed it, was the friendship. Amelia and her best friend both work at the ice cream stand, and her best friend thinks that she's going to be made head manager, but Amelia is. So immediately we start off seeing a little bit of jealousy and strife between the two of them, and they kind of start to grow apart as the summer goes on. As someone who I've already graduated college, I remember what it's like the summer before you leave for college, and you and your friends, you want to spend time together, but you're also noticing a definite growing gap in closeness between you, and I think that this explores that really well. The themes of friendship were the main reason why I ended up giving this 4 stars, and it is a really cute summer fun read, but like I said, it also talks a little bit more about friend groups and friend dynamics, which I think more books should talk about, so I definitely think you should pick this up this summer for sure. The second book that I wanted to talk about today is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, and this is her debut novel. She also is probably better known for writing A Sorcery of Thorns, which was a very popular book on Booktube last fall and winter. This is her first novel that she wrote, and I absolutely loved this book. I ended up giving it 5 stars. This book is following a girl named Isabel, and she is a very well-known painter. She's kind of renowned for her ability to paint the most realistic and excellent portraits. And in this land, there are also fae. So she attracts the attention of a group of fae who all want her to paint their portraits. One of these people is the Autumn Court prince. His name is Rook. And he comes by and he's like, will you paint my portrait? And she says yes. In the beginning, you're seeing their dynamic together. It's really cute. But when the prince takes his picture home to his land and reveals it, it is revealed that she, Isabel, has accidentally painted mortal sorrow, a human emotion, into his eyes, and he is immediately ridiculed for it. He comes back and basically kidnaps Isabel to take her back to his land to stand trial for her crimes, because the fae are not about any of that human emotion. They are very cold and kind of cruel characters. The fact that she had the audacity to paint any human emotion in his eyes really throws him for a loop. So you're kind of following their journey back through different lands as they traverse them to try and get back to the court for her to stand trial. If you're a fan of The Cruel Prince, I definitely think you'll like this book because fairies in this book are depicted as a little darker. They're very politically savvy, a little intense, and I find that there are similar veins to The Cruel Prince in that sense. This one is a little softer. It's also standalone. It's not that big. So I think I read this in a single sitting. I absolutely ate it up. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and this cover is stunning, and I highly recommend that you guys pick it up. So the third book that I wanted to talk about today is a book that I read this year and I absolutely adored, and that's The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. In this book, you are following a girl named Fi, and she is in line to be the future chieftain of her clan. In this society, it is very highly stratified. So at the top, you have your eagles and your hawks, and at the bottom are the crows. And the crows are considered kind of the mercy killer caste because they are the only group of people who are immune to the plague. And currently, the plague is sweeping through the lands, and their job is to kind of dispose of the bodies. This book opens up as we follow Fi and her crew as they are summoned to the royal castle to dispose of 2 dead bodies. royalty. And so the rest of the story is kind of following that and the consequences of that, because the two bodies, they're not actually dead. We're following them as they kind of traverse through the land. This also has a very unique magic system. The magic system is bone magic, and it's specifically rooted in teeth of dead witches. So this was like a super enjoyable read. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I loved it, and I think that you should read it too. The fourth book that I wanted to talk about today is Winter Song by S.J. Jones. And this is a book that, a couple thousand people have read on Goodreads, but I don't think I've seen a single person talk about it on Booktube. And I thought, it's kind of underrated. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed certain aspects of it. We're following this girl named Liesel. She knows of the Goblin King. She's grown up with tales of the Goblin King, and her sister is kidnapped by this Goblin King in the book, and so Liesel takes it upon herself to go and save her. This is a story that's rooted in like Dutch and that kind of area folklore. I thought that was very unique and interesting, and it reminded me of Kingdom of Back a little bit. So if you enjoyed Kingdom of Back, you'd probably like this one as well, because there is a music aspect to it. I really enjoyed the setting. It thoroughly immersed me. I thought that it was definitely a unique take on a like Hades and Persephone kind of trope. And I definitely think that if you liked Kingdom of Back, if you enjoy Hades and Persephone's retelling, I think you'd also really like this book. So I would check it out. And the last book that I wanted to talk about today is probably the book that is least underrated. I've definitely seen some people talk about it, but I still think that it deserves way more hype than it's gotten so far. And that is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto. This book is stunning. I'm a sucker for illustrated covers, and this is no exception. We're following 2 sisters in this book who live in a world where there used to be phoenix riders. Phoenixes were hatched from these eggs, and they were trained to be ridden. Those phoenix riders were part of a very high caste. They were war creatures. We're following a world where there are no phoenixes left, and all the phoenix riders have been killed and gotten rid of. But Veronica and her sister are phoenix riders, so we're following their journey as they're trying to find phoenix eggs to hatch so that they can rejoin the phoenix riders and reclaim their land back. There's a really interesting betrayal that happens kind of in the beginning of the book, and we see the sisters end up splitting up. We're mostly following Veronica's perspective. What I loved about this was that she has to disguise herself as a boy in order to kind of infiltrate this Phoenix Rider society that is open to men only. So she has to disguise herself as a boy, and I truly love that trope. I loved this book. I thought that the family dynamic and relationship was very interesting. As somebody who has a sister, I very much understand the complex relationship between sisters, and I thought this book really explored it well. I also really enjoyed the fantasy aspect to it. I thought that the world building was excellent, and I have yet to read the sequel, but it's going to be on my December TBR, and I can't wait to get to it.
All right, that's it for this video. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Leave a comment down below about the book that you think is most underrated and the ones that you think we should read. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and we'll see you in our next video.